Hey everybody, welcome. Today we're going to be talking about Sevr Broadheads and are they any good? Let's talk a little bit about the design of the Sevr. First of all, the ferrule is made of titanium, super strong, you're not going to break it. I've never had one bend. They also have kind of a chisel point, almost a cut-on contact tip with four sides going up, which is very nice. The blades are rear deploying, which is awesome. And these collars are very, very strong. This is a design feature I like on these mechanical broadheads. I feel like they've really done one up to other companies and how this deploys. The blade actually is designed with a little slit in it to hold that band, and that slit is dull so this band doesn't cut. And you can see I'll break a band here and show you how much tension it takes to break that thing. All right, there it goes. So blade deploys, blade comes out, and then this blade actually swivels. Now they claim that this blade swivels so that when it's going through hide, tissue, and it hits something hard like bone, like a rib, it's gonna swivel around that bone and then deploy back straight once it hits that intermediate pressure again. Now, pretty neat feature. I don't know if it works or not. I have blown through a shoulder of a deer. Both blades went through exactly equally, although, you know, it was a flat piece of bone, so there was no reason for it to swivel. Another thing about these broadheads, which is really, really nice, is they have a little screw hole here, and you put a screw in there, and this blade will not deploy. Go ahead and practice with this. Shoot at your foam targets. It's not going to wreck your targets like fixed blade broadheads will. And you don't have to worry about field points. You just stick these on, practice, take the screw out, put a band on it, go hunting. It's great. They fly super true. I would say that the Sevr flies probably 98%, just like a field point. I don't think you can claim anything truly flies 100%, but these are as close as they get. You will not be able to outshoot these in your field points and tell a difference. One great thing about them. Another great thing is when they're closed, they don't have a whole lot of surface area. So there's not a whole lot of area for the wind to affect this broadhead. They're super small, closed up. There's no vents in them like you'll find on other fixed blade broadheads that have the venting. So they don't whistle going through the air, which means you're gonna have a lot less string jump from the animals hearing that arrow come in, and a lot less wind deflection. The wind's not gonna affect this as much as a big, huge cut-on contact fixed blade head, where there's just a lot of surface area to be hitting that and driving that arrow off a little bit. Another great thing about this broadhead, and the reason why I've switched, I'll say I switched completely to Sevrs this year. I do not carry one fixed blade in my quiver for the first time ever, is if you make a bad shot with the Sevr, especially I use 2-inch Sevr, it's a huge cutting surface. If you make a shot back behind the shoulder, you miss, hit diaphragm, guts, liver, even paunch shot, that animal jumps and runs, you hit them in the butt. This is a big cutting surface diameter, and you're gonna get that animal to bleed out, you're gonna find it. I can't say that against, you know, like a 4-blade. This is a Slick Trick Magnum. Any of these fixed blades that are a little bit smaller, you know, strikers, things like that, the wound channels tend to close up, especially on elk, bear. That fat clogs that hole, and once you lose blood, you know, it's just impossible to find. But what I've found, and I'll show you some pictures here, some deer they shot and some elk, the Sevr broadhead leaves an opening like you wouldn't believe, and it does not close up. The wound trails that you find, the blood trails, are amazing. The wound tracks through animals are huge. So if you do happen to miss, don't hit that sweet spot and miss those vitals, the odds of cutting something big, a major artery, or just getting a lot more damage done to that animal and being able to recover it is a lot better than using a fixed blade broadhead. And that's one thing I really like. Now, people will say, well, you're not going to be able to blow through a shoulder bone. Well, I agree. You won't be able to blow through a shoulder bone, but I would say that about even fixed blade broadheads. I shoot a very heavy 82-pound bow. This is a 530 grain arrow. And I would have a hard time saying that even this big grizzly stick broadhead that's a Tonto point, cut on contact, single bevel, is going to blow through an elbow or a shoulder and actually hit vitals. I mean, you maybe get one lung, but one lung's not good enough to recover an animal most of the time. At least it's going to make it a lot more difficult. I'd rather have that arrow hit that, if I make a bad shot forward, hit that humerus bone, it doesn't go all the way in, and that animal lives for another year, hunt them again. And instead of breaking that bone and not being able to recover that animal. Another key feature of these Sevrs, like I said, I shoot the 2-inch. I haven't had a reason to shoot the 1.5 inch yet. The 2 inches blown through every single animal and has died in one shot within 100 yards. I do carry an 1.5 inch in my quiver for those long secondary backup shots. I'll show you deployed here, the difference. I don't think there's much of a difference. I would be comfortable shooting either. I just, with my setup, prefer the 2-inch. You can see it's really not that much difference, 1/4 inch on each side. And it's about a 1/4 inch longer. One drawback of these, okay? One drawback is these blades are not that sharp from the factory. There's a lot of other blades out there that are a lot sharper. That being said, I haven't had an issue with them blowing through animals. I've seen people try and sharpen them. To me, it's a waste of time. Shoot them through an animal, put a new set of blades in there. They're easy to change out and they're cheap. The whole broadhead itself, you can get it on sale, 15 bucks. That's cheaper than you go buy blades for some fixed blade broadheads. Another thing about these broadheads that could go against you is this band system. Even though it does retain tension very well and is hard to break, you do have to pay attention to that. If it's on your arrow rest and you're walking through the woods, you don't want catching on something and breaking that band or sliding that band off and deploying early before you get a shot. I probably wouldn't be shooting it shoot through blinds. You know, it's always a gamble with a mechanical broadhead, whether it's going to deploy or not. Better off just not doing it. And then when you put it in your quiver, I shoot a tight spot quiver. When you put it in your quiver, that foam, if you push it too far, tends to push those blades out a little bit. I haven't had any break, but I'm very mindful when these are in the quiver to look at them and make sure that those bands are still on. They're not pushed up too tight and expanding or breaking off. And always carry a couple extra bands with me just in case I need them. Even in the quiver, you're walking through the woods with your bow, you set your bow down, push on the nock and it pushes it up in the foam, expand and break that thing. You got to be mindful of that. That is one drawback of these. I don't see that being really a design flaw so much of the Sevr as just the quivers not being able to accept them, and you can drill that foam out if you need to. I've seen people do that and they fit in there just fine. I think the next generation of quivers is going to be made to fit more of these mechanicals in there without deploying. All right, so those are kind of the pros and cons of the Sevr. You know, they fly great, just like your field point, probably better than any other broadhead you're going to find, especially out at long distances. They're super strong, titanium ferrules. These blades are super strong. I have not had a blade break yet on an animal. I have had curled some tips over on the broadheads after they pass through animals and hit rocks on the other side. Again, it's a $15 broadhead. You'll spend more than that just on blades for some of these fixed blade broadheads if you do the same thing. Practice with them as much as you want. Blades won't get dull. They won't wreck your target. You take that set screw out, put a band on them, go hunting. You know, just pay attention to that band system on the collar. Make sure that's on there and these blades are set. They're super easy to undeploy. You just push one in, slide them back down, put a new band on there if they get deployed. So let's talk a little bit about who should be shooting them. As a good rule of thumb, I would say if you are below a 28-inch draw length and shooting between a 50 and 70 pound bow, I would just go with the 1.5 inch. You're not going to be losing much surface diameter on that cut, and you're going to take less kinetic energy to enter that animal and have more to get through that animal. The one drawback of every mechanical broadhead is it will take more kinetic energy to get into that hide, deploy the blades, and get through that animal. So if you're shooting low poundage, low draw length, I would go with the 1.5 inch. If you're shooting 70 pounds or up and you have a 28-inch plus draw, I would shoot the 2 inch, even at elk. I blew right through an elk this year, arrow passed right through him. He died right on the spot. I mean, he didn't move more than 3 yards before he tipped over. So I've been really impressed with the 2-inch. Like I said, if you don't like mechanicals, you're stuck on the fixed blades, it's great. I love fixed blades too. But buy 1.5 inches and stick it in the back of your quiver for those long follow-up shots if needed. You take a bad first shot, or the animal just runs and hasn't really died, you don't know. That long follow-up shot could be the one that gets that animal done. Having something like this that flies true and you know is going to fly good out to 80, 90, 100 yards is something to have in your mind. And I would put one in the quiver and practice with it. You're going to see, you're going to really like how these things fly. They fly great. Another pro is, you know, you're not going to have to tune your bow more than you tune it for your field points with these. They're going to fly pretty much the same, where you can know if you put different fixed blades on, depending on the length, the size, how big those blades are, they can shoot different out of your bow, and you may have to retune your bow to your broadhead and your field points again. That isn't necessarily the case with the Sevr. They fly pretty true to your field points, so there's not a whole lot of retuning you're gonna have to do. As far as big game, dangerous game, I would say pass. I would go with something with a cut-on contact, probably a single bevel broadhead for dangerous game. I'm not saying the Sevr wouldn't work. That's just a gamble. I mean, I think it would go in. I think you would get very far into the vitals. Just not a lot of data done on it. I haven't seen it done. I would certainly be willing to try. But if you're going to risk your life on something, I would go with a bigger single bevel broadhead, large cut on contact. You're not going to get the distance. You're going to have more surface area. The wind's going to affect it more, but those are the things that you take into consideration when you're shooting at those animals.
All right, we're outside here, and it is brisk. We're going to shoot field tip, and 1.5 and 2-inch Sevrs. We're going 60 yards. We're shooting a Hoyt RX2, 82 pounds, 520 grain arrows going like 280 feet per second. Here comes field tip. All right, this is the 2.0. And the 1.5. All right, let's go see how we did.
Well, all right, so this is what we got. You can see there. Okay, so we got that was the field tip. This is the 2, and this is the 1.5 inches. Now that's 60 yards. I mean, honestly, I know the 2 Sevrs were a little left, but that was probably me. I haven't shot in a little bit, and it is freezing cold outside, but I mean, that's a decent group, 60 yards with those. I mean, they do fly just like field points. Anyways, that's all I got, guys. Thanks for listening. I hope you go buy at least one Sevr for your quiver. You're going to really enjoy it. I think you're going to like it. Have a good day, guys.